Hello, everyone. This is Gene Trowbridge with the law firm of Trowbridge Nieh. We're securities lawyers. We do private placement securities offerings, and we are doing our second series in what I call TN Talks. And our first series was just simply interviewing clients and service providers to the industry. I think we did 37 interviews on that. It was all very interesting. And my goal there was to have people who are in the business tell us how they got started and what their advice for rookies was. Well, in this series, I'm interviewing people that do investments or involved in syndication in investments that are alternatives to multifamily. We do a lot of business in multifamily, but it's very interesting that there are self-storage syndicators and mobile home park syndicators and debt syndicators out there doing a lot of business and raising a lot of money. And so I wanted to talk to people who are in the industry who can share their experience on that. And today I'm pretty darn excited once again to have my good friend and my self-directed IRA administrator, Kaaren Hall, join us. And how are you, Kaaren?
I'm doing so good. It's really great to see you, Gene.
Yeah, it's always good to see you, and thanks for taking your time today. Well, let's start out with telling everyone a little bit about you and about your company, uDirect, and how did you get in this business?
That's always, it wasn't a straight line, that's for sure. But yeah, so self-directed IRAs, it's something that people really don't even know about. And when I got into the industry, I'd never heard about it either. My background after being a radio announcer was, being a realtor for a year when I was still in my 20s and getting into property management and then loan servicing and loan origination, little management in there. And then during the recession, bouncing out of loan origination because there wasn't any to self-directed IRAs. And of course, in 2009, I bounced out of there and opened uDirectIRA services. So we've been going, it's about to have our 14th anniversary here coming up. So in that time, we've helped thousands and thousands of people to self-direct, and we have nearly $1 billion under management, just under $1 billion under management.
Oh yeah, $1 billion, that's a lot of money, but out of 17 trillion, that's just a slice, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a drop in the bucket.
I think that industry, isn't that industry right about 17 trillion or something like that the last time I heard? Wow.
Well, I think the entire retirement industry in general, like all savings, is about 40 trillion. Oh. It's around there. If you put everything in there, like defined benefit plans and 401ks and all together. Yeah, it's huge.
That really is. So as I said, I've been your client and I've known you ever since you got into business, and you're always a support to me, and I sure appreciate it. So let's get into the issue of alternatives to multifamily. I know people can take their self-directed IRA. I guess we probably have to kind of explain that a little bit better. You have an IRA and you can tell Kaaren where you want your money invested, right?
Yes, uDirect your money.
uDirect, that's what it's called. Yeah. And so you see all sorts of investments that people make other than multifamily. So tell us about that.
Yeah, I think in general, every investment is pretty much debt or equity. So that's what you're looking at. Like, what is the vehicle or the contract like for people to get into an asset? But then what is the actual asset behind, the contract? And it's almost always real estate. So when it's a syndication, and you've heard of that, right, Gene? Syndications?
Yeah, somewhere. It's my middle name, right?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, so behind the syndications are real estate, and there's multifamily, obviously that's huge, but it's self-storage, mobile home parks, business buildings, or complexes or strip malls, or so many different things that people are raising capital for, where they are fundraisers and they're using syndication as a vehicle to raise capital, and it's almost always backed by real estate. But as far as the asset class, private equity is the #1 asset class in the self-directed IRA field. That's what most people are investing in, or through, I should say. But
has there been any trend away? Have you seen any trend away from multifamily in the last year and a half?
Not really. I think that people are still interested in, I think, looking maybe to pick up some deals, because of course there's been some volatility in that area. And so, maybe some fire sales. So, I mean, the market is constantly changing. We all know that. I mean, if you're alive, you see that. So, so people are always looking to pick up deals. So we're seeing people take advantage of, someone will exit and someone will grab it and enter.
It's funny because I did my very first syndication way back when was a multifamily property, and I did a couple of them, and I hated management. So I said, well, what type of asset can I go to that the management isn't the same? So I tried a mobile home park, and unfortunately, I bought a seniors mobile home park, and the tenants were very needy. Extremely needy, and it was even more of a management headache than the apartment. So I eventually gravitated toward, as you know, self-storage, and built quite a bit of self-storage. Here you have, 600 units, one toilet, and if you manage it right, no one is sleeping there overnight. Now that wasn't always the case, but so that I loved getting away from the management, and we just built units, and we syndicated them and sold them to big players who manage them. In fact, I still have some buckets of orange paint from all the properties I built that we sold to self-storage, to what is it? Geez, I'm having a senior moment. Public storage. Yeah, we had orange doors and all that stuff. So that was my move away from multifamily. And in this series, I've talked to mobile home parks, self-storage, debt. Let's talk about debt a little bit. What type of instruments are people investing in if it's backed by paper debt?
We see a lot of trust deeds. People are investing in secured notes that are secured by property, which is, it's a great play for a self-directed IRA because it's so passive. You don't have to manage that unless, of course, it goes unpaid. But if you've got a secure note on real estate and they don't pay, well, then the brass ring is you get the property, and hopefully you bought in or got, invested at a good LTV where you've got some profit there. So people are doing a lot of, secured notes on real estate, but you can do unsecured notes too.
Are they originating those notes, or are they buying existing notes that are out there? Oh, okay.
Yeah, from time to time, I mean, people are selling notes at a discount. In fact, I was just reading an article about some commercial money going out at a discount now too, is because, there's a bank looking for liquidity and they're selling their commercial notes. There's always opportunity in the market, but yeah, we definitely see that. So yeah, you can buy performing and non-performing debt, get it performing, and and have raise. I would say raise capital, but what you're really doing is building your retirement by growing that asset. So we definitely see that. But being the bank and lending money is a great way to build an IRA, and it's also a really good grassroots way of helping the community. So if I can just kind of interject here, since you're talking about alternatives to multifamily. But after the Great Recession and after COVID, we had a lot of people lose businesses, and self-directed IRAs, with a self-directed IRA, you can jump in there and invest in like one of these mom and pop places. Like, how many small strip mall stores did you see go out of business, like a donut store or a nail salon or, a barber shop or something? Well, they want to get back in and they need capital. And now that we're out and about and we can do these things, your IRA can help on a grassroots level of helping even just a mom and pop get back into their business as a debt or equity partner.
Sure, and that debt probably, at least ideally, is producing more cash flow as a percentage than investing in some of the real estate assets.
Yeah, it can, and if it's a passive investment too, then as opposed to real estate, where a lot of times it can be active. there's that. And you and I were talking on the phone a little while ago about capital calls, and that's something that's new because of the raise in interest rates, the hike. And so that's why we always recommend people leave a pad of uninvested cash, idle cash in their accounts in case you have expenses, because they have to be paid for by the IRA. And capital calls on private equity when they're getting new financing and it's more expensive than they budgeted for, then we've seen a lot of capital calls.
Well, I did something for my YouTube channel after we talked about that, where what do you do if there's a capital call and you go to the investor and the investor's an IRA investor?
Right.
And so the big thing that the sponsors didn't understand is that the IRA investor has to make their capital call out of the same IRA that has invested as an equity participant, and they might not have the money. So then they can go number two, right, as you told me, was to some other IRA that same investor owns. You could do that, or
transfer it over. They could transfer it into the self-directed.
Sure. Or they have to, my clients had to go and amend their operating agreement to allow a new class of investor to come in. And then the people could invest with their own money as a Class C investor, which would give the fund the money that they need, but it's just not through their IRAs. It's very, very complicated and something that people don't know about. And where I learned about that, I learned some class. The example was that you owned a rental house, and you can own your own rental house with your own IRA money. And the example was we needed a new heating air conditioning system, and it was about $10,000.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, the owner of the property through their IRA, and they spent all of their money just to buy the property, found that they didn't have the money in their IRA to buy that heating and air conditioning, and they had to maybe wait until they made this year's contribution or come up with something. And oh man, it is complicated, and that's why you have people like you who can give the investors and your clients advice on what to do. So I think that's great. And you said $1 billion, Kaaren. Woo.
Yeah. But I want to add something to what you said, and that is when people are investing in like a house, a single family house, or maybe they're buying a building of any kind, if it's not through private equity, but we always insist on a 10% pad for expenses.
Excellent.
And some people will balk at that until they run into a situation where they need an HVAC and they're so glad that they had the money in their retirement account. But a 10% is, I just want to throw that in, that's a good rule of thumb with the self-directed IRA, so that you have the liquidity there in case you have to, there's some kind of unexpected expense.
That's right. And one of the questions I like to have my clients ask in the offering questionnaire is the age of the investor. Because if you're going to have a lot of 70 something investors in there,
yes,
who are required to take mandatory annual distributions, you might have a second thought about how much of their money can they invest, because in 3 months they're going to have to take $6,000-$7,000 out of their fund, and there goes your 10% liquidity, right?
Possibly. I mean, the RMDs are it's you take all of your pre-tax money, retirement money, combine it together, multiply it times this factor that you can find on a chart on the IRS's website, and that gives you how much you have to withdraw. You don't have to withdraw it from your self-directed IRA. If you have another retirement account that has capital, you can take it out of there. But if the self-directed IRA is all you have, you've got to leave money. You've got to leave money in there for your RMD. But hey, as you know, Gene, the Secure Act 2.0 did raise the RMD age to 73. So that is effective 2023. And and in 10 years, it will go up from 73 to 75, because we just live longer. I mean, 70 used to be genuinely old, and it just, where you're having trouble, and it just isn't that anymore. I mean, 70 is the new 50, right? It's people are so much healthier. Like, well, I know someone
never going to catch up with me It's
I was going to
already
say,
75. It'll never catch up with me.
yeah, I was going to say, I know this man who's 75 and he runs marathons, it's
Yeah.
pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's great. I do a lot more walking these days than I did, at 60 when I started. That's for darn sure. And I'm already in training for September 3rd, the first Sunday in September in Kauai it'll be my 15th in Kauai. I run every one of them. It's amazing. This is kind of on the side, but the first year there were 3,000 runners in that race, and last year there were 48 of us who have run every one. So
Annual events.
yeah, I'm a legacy, and I'm hoping to outlive everyone else. I think that's what but that's beside the point. So what's your viewpoint of the syndication industry as we talk here today?
I see it from a lot of different angles, not just as an investor. I mean, I see ways. I mean, we talk about how it's a great vehicle to invest. It's a great vehicle to raise capital. But I think we need to talk about what a syndication says. I mean, when you invest in a note, you have a promise to repay the debt, right? But when you invest in a syndication, it's everybody's just putting their money in together, and there's no promise to repay because everyone is assuming the same level of risk. It's like, hey, we're accredited. This looks like it's going to go forward. Here's our track record. Everybody jump in and we're all in the same pool. We'll all sink or swim together. And so there's no promise to repay. So you just have to be so careful about the operator that you're investing with. Just check them out. There's the FINRA's website. The SEC has a website. The NASAA, the National Association of State Securities Advisors, I think it is. And, they all have websites where you can look people up and see what their status is and if they've ever had a fuss with investors. So you just definitely want to do your due diligence. And you also want to see in the operating agreement that you've got the right to check their audited financials. And then you want to call the CPA firm that did those audited financials and make sure that they in fact did those audited financials. Little due diligence, because when problems happen, it's almost never upfront. It's as the deal is going forward, and maybe there's some cash flow issues. Maybe they kind of rob Peter to pay Paul, or pay the new investors the old investors with the new investor money, and it turns into a Ponzi, and all these different kinds of things can happen. So your due diligence with a private equity deal doesn't stop when you give them a check. You need to continue your due diligence during that investment period.
That's true. And one of the things I find is that most of my clients send out quarterly financial statements. And when you get a check with your quarterly financial statement, it would be a good idea to look at the profit and loss statement and see how the hell could they send me a check when we're running negative? And then that's fraudulent, because what they've done, they've reached into their reserves and are sending you part of their savings, which is earmarked for putting in new air conditioning systems. And now that's gone. And they tell you made a return, but what you got is a return of your capital. And so that's fraud. That's very, very, very interesting. Tell me, can you give me a ballpark of the percentage of your clients who are accredited?
We don't ask that question because it's not relevant to whether or not you can self-direct. It's more relevant to the asset sponsor. But again, given the number of private equity deals that we do fund, I would say it's pretty high. I think a lot of times the self-directed IRA investor is a accredited or at least sophisticated investor. So
I bring that up because I was at a conference in March. Every year I go to a conference that's got at least one SEC director and FINRA people and they give you the scoop on what's coming up. And what's coming up is a headlong, strong movement by the state regulators to change the definition of accredited investor. When Dodd-Frank came out, it said every 5 years the SEC has to look at the definition of accredited investors. And the last time they did, they made some changes, as you know, securities licensees are accredited now and spousal equivalents and all that stuff, but they never really changed $1,200,000. And boy, I was a syndicator in 1981 when Reg D came out. And before Reg D, all we needed to know is that an accredited investor was rich and smart. Well, so what were the rest of us? Poor and dumb? I don't know. But anyhow, rich and smart. And so then in 81, Reg D came along and said, $1 million net worth and $200,000 in income. And in 1981, that was a lot of money.
Yeah.
But it's still the same.
Yeah, they probably do need to change that. I agree.
Well, the push is, let's just apply inflation to all that. And so the presentation I heard from the chairman of all the state directors who was there, $3.5 million for net worth and $750,000 for an individual annual income. You know what that would do?
Yeah, it would kind of kill the industry. It
would, now we're back to 35 sophisticated investors in every deal.
Yeah.
And it would really, really harm. And what they're thinking is the stockbrokers are going to fight that like crazy, because that'll kill their industry. But there's a valid reason. There's a valid reason that maybe we need to relook at that. Remember when Dodd-Frank came out, they said after 2008, let's take your primary residence out of the calculation of your net worth, which is a big deal in California and also communities. And from what I heard at that time, that cost us about 30% of the accredited investors in the United States. And this would be a major change. But I would think toward the end of 2023, going into 2024, we might very well see a proposal come out from the SEC for comment about further changes in the accredited investor deal. And everyone will get up in arms, but they see the proposal. But that proposal is a year away from being anything. And it's always going to be changed because they open it for comments and then whatever. I mean, the Jobs Act came out in 2012, but wasn't finalized until September of 2013. So it took a while.
Yeah, they do have a long commentary period. There's just a different one that just closed that I saw. But I mean, they're always trying to protect the investor.
That's the whole thing, isn't it? That's the whole thing. And that is admirable, because when you hear the horror stories, and they all come from the state regulators, because to get the SEC to act against you it's kind of a big deal. But the state regulators have time and money to go after anyone who's messed with their citizens. And it's a it's just amazing. Just amazing. I actually had something happen to me in the last year where it was clear to me that one of my clients took money from one fund and put it in another fund and gave it back. I fired that client.
Yeah.
I only had two choices. I had from then on, I had to put in every PPM I wrote that there was a risk that the sponsor would take money from one fund and put it in the other fund, and or not represent that client anymore, which is funny because they've since gone on to another attorney who probably doesn't know what happened. There's no reason to report this or anything, but I did learn in doing some legal research that the definition or the defense of no harm and no foul is not a valid defense. The case was a fellow took $6 million from one fund and went over here and put $8 million back. He's doing 84 months in jail.
I believe it.
And he was fined the $6 million, which they already got back, but they find him another $6 million that they have to pay to those investors.
Wow. Wow.
No
Wow.
harm, no foul. There's no such thing because it's fraud.
Yeah. I mean, this is serious business. I mean, we see people that will invest without doing their due diligence. We had one woman throwing $500,000 into an unsecured note on real estate, and she wasn't sophisticated or even accredited, and she didn't even do due diligence. It's easy for me to say. She didn't do her due diligence on this deal, and if she had, she would have seen that one of these sponsors was actually in jail for 2 years for defrauding people. So she didn't know that she had to be accredited. She didn't know that that asset had to be registered with the SEC in her state. But we spotted it and called it out, and we were able to prevent her from moving forward on that.
Well, that's great. And I know, let's make this clear. You don't give investment advice.
No.
Not at all. You don't give investment advice. My clients who have investors who use you, you get some paperwork, you sign off on the paperwork, and that's it. Okay.
But when we see something so blatant in our face, we can't, you're just same thing with you. When you see it, you have to, you saw it, so you have to do something. We had to say that asset was not administratively feasible, which is about all we can say.
Very, very interesting. Okay, for the last question, what educational events or products does uDirect offer, and how can our people who are watching this find out about them?
Well, we have a free report on our website. So it's the letter U, uDirectIRA.com. If you look right at the top, you'll see free report. You can grab that. We do a lot of podcasts. We're doing a lot of them, and so we will market that and promote that on our weekly email update. And so on our website too, you can sign up for that weekly email, so you can register for that. But we attend all kinds of conferences and events. I'll be speaking at Bigger Pockets in October in Orlando. And, we're just doing lots and lots, we're always out there. But it used to be mileage. I used to put 100,000 miles on my car every year. And now I can do so many things like this. It's great to see you even on Zoom, but we're not driving to meet each other. And this is wonderful too, where we can just reach so many more people, record it and save it. And, so we, I love this, and we do a lot of this.
And you aren't you the driver behind OCRIA?
Yes. Yeah. In 2012, I agreed to take on a RIA, because every major metropolitan area has a RIA. So ever since 2012, so what is that, 10, 11 years, every month we've had a meeting. And so, Gene, you've been our guest many, many times, and talking about raising private capital. And so we were meeting in a really nice location here in Orange County, but of course with COVID, we stopped doing that. Then we went on Zoom, and what happened was we were able to reach so many more people through this platform than we could, meeting in this beautiful hotel. And the price, for the Zoom, you've got to pay dues every year. That the dues for Zoom was equal to one in-person meeting. It was like over $1,000 a meeting. So it just washes out. So we really like meeting on Zoom, but we still have local mixers, where people with money and people with deals can come together, and you meet like-minded investors, have a cocktail, maybe do a deal together.
Well, good. Then the people who are listening will go to your website and see about that. And I, like you said, I've been invited several times. I always appreciate it. And then I get all the information, and I know that I don't know when this is going to play, but I know that coming up, you're having one of our good friends speak, Kim Taylor, and that'll be exciting, and that'll be great for the audience. And so you have a far-reaching network, and you bring in good speakers. And the lady who speaks about the economy every time I've ever been there is pretty darn interesting now.
Yeah.
Remember her name, but she's interesting. So.
Yeah, and it's nice that people like Kim, Kim is in Florida. And that's the great thing about Zoom. And I know, like, Bruce Norris has been on our on OCRIA. He's in Florida, and so
you're just a name dropper. Name dropper.
But wherever these people are, they don't have to fly to California. I wish they would, but they can do this from the comfort of their house, and we can still get the information and, and maybe not earn a couple frequent flyer miles.
No, that's really terrific. So thank you very much, Kaaren Hall. I appreciate you taking your time again to be interviewed by me. And once again, this is Gene Trowbridge as part of our Let's Talk series. And you can reach me at my email address, gene@tnllp.com, or give me a call on what's on the slide. And remember, we are securities lawyers, and we write the paperwork for all the investments that Karen's investors invest in. And so it's a great relationship. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Gene.
I'll talk to you later.
Lovely.